Hey, First United Methodist friends, it is Pastor Shannon here with a weekly update for January 27th. I hope you are staying warm in this bitter cold, and I missed you all so much on Sunday, but I know that canceling was the best decision just because of the snow and the extreme cold temperatures. I wanted to take this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on Minneapolis and kind of the current events that are going on there. Over the weekend, as I did, and I'm sure you did, we all saw this footage of a young man, Alex Preddy, being shot and killed by federal agents. And I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, this stirred up a lot of emotions and feelings. I think about how Renee Good, who was shot and killed by federal agents a few weeks ago, she was 37 years old. Alex was 37 years old, and I am 37 years old. This could have easily been me. Now, as a pastor, I really hesitate to comment on every single current event because, quite frankly, if I addressed every single crisis in our news cycle or every horrible thing that occurred in our country, that would be my full-time job, and I wouldn't get anything else done. And I also don't want my voice to just be another voice adding to kind of the cacophony of noise that is already going on. I'm not really very active on social media. I don't post a lot. It can kind of be a cesspool at times on social media. And I tend to reserve my comments on current events for worship, within my sermon or perhaps during my pastoral prayer time. But I felt this situation was a little bit different and it needed to be addressed. Now, in our big question series that we've been doing the last couple of weeks, when we've looked at hard topics on life and death and God and the Bible, we kind of take two approaches. First, what does the Bible say on this? And second, what does our faith tradition, which happens to be the United Methodist Church, what does our faith tradition say on this topic? So kind of taking that same approach with what's going on in Minnesota, here are just some of my thoughts. In Scripture, in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, time and time and time again, God shows a preference for the marginalized, for the poor, for the outsiders, the vulnerable, the least of these. And repeatedly throughout Scripture, God calls upon God's people to care for and welcome the immigrant, the foreigner, and the strangers living in their midst. This is something Jesus also charged us with as well, to welcome the stranger as if we were welcoming himself. Now, I know there are laws in our country, but from what I see, many immigrants are doing their best to navigate a really complex legal system. They're trying to work and pay taxes. They're trying to keep their families safe. They've often come to this country from really oppressive situations. And so I don't agree with the really extreme methods that are currently being employed by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, or the Department of Homeland Security, and what they're doing in Minnesota and other places around the world or around the country. And frankly, I don't think their actions are in line with what I read in the Bible. Now, second, as we look to our United Methodist faith tradition, as United Methodists, in our baptismal vows and our confirmation vows, we are asked the question: do you accept the freedom and power God gives you to resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they present themselves? And so I think this is one of those times where we need to live out our baptismal vows. We need to stand up and speak out against the harmful and oppressive tactics that are currently being used against the immigrant community in our country, as well as the oppressive tactics being used against peaceful protesters and innocent bystanders like Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Now, by all accounts, from what I've read and what I've seen, Alex Preddy was a kind man. He was an ICU nurse at the local VA hospital. One of his last actions in life was to try to help up a woman who had been tear gassed and shoved to the ground by federal enforcement officers. And he was there peacefully enacting his constitutional rights to protest, to witness law enforcement officials. It didn't seem like he was interfering with them or attacking them in any way. And quite frankly, I don't think he should have been shot and killed. I think he should be alive today. So those are just kind of some of the thoughts that are going through my head. Our United Methodist Missouri Conference Bishop Bob Farr, he put it a lot more eloquently. He released a statement on all these kind of events earlier today. I'm going to link to that in my update email. This Sunday, we will continue our big question series by talking about what is the rapture, what's up with the rapture, and specifically talking about the second coming of Christ. So I'm looking forward to it. You won't want to miss it, and I hope to see you there.